I said, he's an endlessly inventive actor. He always comes with an idea, and he and I talk every episode about where we start, where we want to go to, and where we end in that episode. And there's a sort of an infinitely mineable relationship between a father and a son, particularly this father and this son. And perhaps it makes me more of the straight man, but the fact of the matter is that he's so good that it makes my job much easier, because he just, you can sit and witness, and if in any way you think that it's just him sort of chewing the scenery, it's not, because it's very conscious and he's very collaborative, which is why there's such a warmth to that Walter character. Here's the thing, for me, what's been so interesting for me so far, the first 6 months, if you stripped away all the science fiction, if you took away the fact that these men are literally dealing in sort of life and death situations all the time, we all have to deal with our parents. And eventually, I will know the answer to the question, but we all have to deal with our children. And these men have a broken and twisted dynamic, but the fact is that Peter is his little boy, and he doesn't want to be. He would rather not be. He resists it at every turn. But for the first time in his life, he's given an entree into this man's life, into his own father's life. And he realizes that the person that he probably built up as a boogeyman in his own life is actually so much more and so much less than what he had always thought. And I find that to me has been the most fun of the entire show so far. It's that we deal with crazy things. I was wiping goo off a monster's nose yesterday, and that's all well and good. But when you boil it right down, I just think the dynamic between these two guys is so interesting, and it's something that we all deal with. Maybe not at quite the heightened level that we're dealing with it on the show, but you can't help but redefine your relationship with your parents as you grow older. Peter is a shallow, venal, hedonistic, nihilistic man. So, if Olivia's sister would sleep with him, I think he could absolutely jump in the chance.
Best description.
Yeah,
So does she?
I don't know. Not much. The odd dynamic for Olivia is that she needs Walter, and she has to stand Peter. Peter is the translator, and he's also, he's the one who keeps him together. But this is not a trustworthy man. Where she found him is not a good place. Where he was before is nothing to be proud of. And he's always 1 foot in and 1 foot out. And he's having a grand old time, but as soon as it suits him, he's the first person that would put the dagger in the back. I don't think it is necessarily that Peter is a dishonorable person. I just don't think he gives a shit. This is fun. It's enjoyable for him right now, and he's all of a sudden, for the first time in his life, got an emotional hook that he didn't expect, because his dad is right here, and it turns out he's human. He hates it. He can't get away from it, and he wants to not be that emotionally invested in his father, but he can't help himself, and that's why he's stuck in this place. He has a professional involvement with Olivia, but the emotional involvement with Olivia on her side is with John Scott. Peter is a functionary in her life. It's not an emotional relationship that they have. She needs him to solve the riddle that is Walter, and then she needs Walter to be the crazy genius that he is. So when you say like a romantic relationship between the two of them, I don't think there's a romantic relationship between the two of them. He works for her, which is also a very new place for him. I don't think he's ever been an underling in his life. And he has this function where he doesn't really care whether it goes well or it goes poorly. He's not a white hat guy, right? It doesn't concern him, unless it's anybody in his immediate purview, it doesn't concern him whether people live or people die. This is a man who is willing to take money to build a pipeline in Iraq. This is a man who sold native lands in South America, as we found in episode 4. This is a man who is totally willing to be self-serving, and it doesn't really concern him who is hurt along the way. And he'll use people, and he does and has used people. And he finds himself stuck in this place because of his father. And for the first time in his life, caring, and I think it really pisses him off. I think that's where all that, the biting sarcasm between Peter and Walter, I think it really gets under his skin that the one person that he would never want to care about, the one person he told himself it doesn't matter, is his father. And and now he's in his father's life, and he doesn't want the guy to be hurt, and he wants to be around him. He's actually protecting him to the point where he actually says, this sort of serious mea culpa to her, which is, I didn't want to believe, I didn't want to say it to myself, but it turns out you're right. I'm an asshole. I love him, and I don't want him to go away. That's a huge shift in his life. Well, uh, first off, if I get compared to X-Files ever in my life, that's a good name. So that's one of my favorite TV shows of all time. And I actually think that it makes sense in the beginning of our show, in the beginning of any show. I'm sure that when ER came on the air, they were like, oh, it's like, Dr. Quinn, and, with a handsome guy and a girl. So it takes a while for a show to define itself, and our show is now slowly defining itself, and we've sort of found our audience who comes back with us week after week, and we're slowly building on that. So it doesn't. I'm not bothered at all, truly, by the fact that we were compared to X-Files, but the structure of the show is radically different. Even though the content of the show might occasionally, well, not occasionally, is it sort of genre-wise is the same, the structure of the dynamics between the characters is entirely different. I mean, Mulder was a man on a mission. Olivia is a cop. Right? Mulder was very clear about what he wanted from the very beginning to the very end. He needed to find his sister. It didn't matter what questions needed to be asked or what answers needed to be found. He had to find his sister. Olivia's a cop. She wants to solve her case. She wants to know why, how, who, what, where, and she's not interested in fucking green aliens. Doesn't matter.